Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining me today, because we are cracking open a vault that has literally fueled global speculation for nearly a century. On May 8, 2026, the U.S. Department of War released a massive, highly anticipated trove of previously classified files. We're talking about documents, videos, and images that have been locked away from the public eye for years. So today, we're going to walk through exactly what is actually in these files. We'll separate the science fiction from the science fact, and we'll uncover the real story behind decades of government secrecy.
And it really all starts with one profound question. Are we being visited? It's a question that has pretty much captivated humanity for generations. But to truly understand why the government declassified these specific files, we need to step away from the Hollywood movies for a second and look at a gripping, real-world encounter that happened just a few years ago. Let's look at a highly classified event involving sworn federal agents and something entirely inexplicable in our skies.
Okay, let's dive into this. Picture this. It's 2023 at an undisclosed location in America. A team of federal agents on a routine evening operation suddenly spots a glowing, round, orange orb in the sky. Over the next 2 days, 3 different teams, totaling 6 highly trained federal officers, reported the exact same thing. But guys, it gets stranger. These sworn officers reported seeing smaller red orbs launching from the large orange one. It was literally like a mothership releasing smaller planes, and this happened 5 distinct times. Then the sequel to this story hits in 2025. A senior intelligence official takes a helicopter out to that exact same location. They spot a similar orb hovering right above the ground, but when the helicopter moves in to pursue it, the orb instantly moves 20 miles away, vastly outrunning the chopper. These are not conspiracy theorists, right? These are sworn government officials witnessing things that seem to completely defy our standard understanding of physics.
Now, when we hear wild stories like that, our minds immediately jump to aliens. But let's clarify what we're actually talking about here. A UFO, an unidentified flying object, is simply any airborne phenomenon that we can't immediately identify or explain. It is a literal term. While pop culture has totally hijacked the acronym to mean extraterrestrial visitors, in the context of these government files and military sightings, a UFO is simply a puzzle waiting to be solved.
And wow, there are a lot of puzzles in this drop. The sheer scale of the May 2026 declassification is staggering. Hosted over at war.gov/UFO, the U.S. government published 162 files. This includes 28 never-before-seen videos and 14 unexplained images. And this data dump includes reports from the heavy hitters. We're talking the FBI, the Pentagon, NASA, and the State Department. What makes this so incredibly compelling is that out of all this newly released data, there are hundreds of strange cases where the U.S. government itself is openly admitting, yeah, we don't know what these are.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why they don't know. The objects in these files seemingly break the basic laws of physics and inertia. In 2023, an infrared sensor captured an object off the coast of Greece making 90-degree turns right on the ocean surface at 80 miles per hour. That is a maneuver virtually impossible for any known aircraft. In 2024, surveillance over Iraq caught an object blasting past a military aircraft at incredible speeds before just vanishing. Over in Japan, they spotted this weird football-shaped craft with 3 strange projections. And going back to 2013, the FBI even sketched a 130-foot metallic oval seen hovering in the US based on actual site photos. They appear, they do the impossible, and they vanish.
But these mysteries aren't just confined to our atmosphere. Let's shift our gaze to space for a minute. Listen to this quote from astronaut Frank Borman during the Gemini 7 mission back in 1965. "Bogey at 10 o'clock high." Now, in military terminology, a bogey means an unidentified, potentially hostile aircraft or missile. Using that term on a battlefield makes total sense, but using it in the absolute vacuum of space, over 4 hours into a space flight, that is incredibly chilling. Ground control actually thought he was just seeing his own booster, but Borman confirmed the booster was already in sight. This was a third, entirely unidentified object.
And this strangeness extends right into the legendary Apollo missions. During Apollo 11, Buzz Aldrin reported seeing flashing lights in the cabin and a large sparkling light source on the moon that looked kind of like a laser. During Apollo 12, astronauts reported highly unusual light flashes and particles swirling around their landing site. And perhaps most astonishingly, during Apollo 17 in 1972, a photograph captured 3 distinct dots hovering in a triangular formation above the moon. Fast forward over 50 years to this recent declassification, and the government's preliminary analysis actually states that those Apollo 17 dots could indeed be physical objects, but they still don't know what they are.
So, we have high-speed orbs, impossible aerial maneuvers down here on Earth, and unidentified objects floating in the literal vacuum of space. It really begs the question, what connects all of these sightings? If we lay all these data points out on a giant map, spanning all these decades and countries, is there a hidden pattern that can explain what is actually going on here? Well, to find that pattern, we need to take a quick historical detour.
We have to jump back to 1947. A private pilot named Kenneth Arnold was flying over Washington state when he spotted 9 shining objects flying in a V formation at roughly 1,200 miles per hour. That was double the speed of any aircraft at the time. When reporters asked him to describe them, he actually didn't say they looked like saucers. He said they moved the way a saucer would if he skipped it across the water. But the media completely misunderstood. They printed the headline, "Flying Saucers," and boom, an entire global cultural phenomenon was born.
The public obsession became so intense that the U.S. government launched Project Blue Book in 1952 just to investigate. Over 17 years, they looked into more than 12,000 UFO cases. Now, most of them were easily explained away as weather balloons, planets, or just conventional airplanes. But out of those 12,000 cases, there is one number you absolutely need to remember: 701. Exactly 701 cases remain totally and completely unexplained. And I'll tell you, nothing fueled that mystery quite like the Roswell incident, which happened just 2 weeks after Kenneth Arnold's sighting. On July 8, 1947, the Roswell Army Airfield actually issued a press release claiming they had recovered a flying disc that crashed on a farm. Naturally, the world goes completely crazy. But literally the very next day, on July 9, the military does a complete 180. They retract the statement and claim it was just a weather balloon. This incredibly rapid reversal set the stage for decades of deep government mistrust and global hysteria.
But the real explanation didn't actually come out until decades later. And honestly, it's fascinating. In 1994, the government declassified Project Mogul. See, during the Cold War, the U.S. was using highly classified, high-altitude spy balloons to secretly monitor Soviet nuclear tests. That debris in Roswell? It was a crashed Mogul spy balloon. And those rumors of alien bodies being recovered? A 1997 report confirmed they were actually military test dummies used in high-altitude crash tests, or in one tragic case, victims of an ordinary plane crash. That's right, crash dummies. The U.S. government basically deliberately allowed the alien myth to spread because letting people believe in Martians was a whole lot safer than exposing top-secret Cold War surveillance tech to the Soviet Union.
And that historical cover-up brings us directly back to that hidden pattern I mentioned earlier. If you plot all these modern and historical UFO sightings on a map, you see a glaringly clear geopolitical pattern. Back in the 50s and 60s, they clustered around the US, Germany, and the Soviet border. Today, the sightings from these new declassified files heavily cluster around Iraq, Syria, Japan, and the Strait of Hormuz. UFOs are almost always spotted exactly where the US military is most active and where they've deployed their most advanced monitoring systems.
So the crucial point is this: we are largely looking at an earthly espionage game. The Pentagon has formally admitted that a huge chunk of the UFOs reported in the 1950s and 60s were actually secret U.S. spy planes and space technologies undergoing testing. And today, well, the modern anomalies buzzing around conflict zones in the Middle East and Asia are frequently identified as highly advanced surveillance drones deployed by Iran, the Houthis, or China.
So let's link this grounded reality right back to our opening story. Remember that glowing orange mothership dropping smaller red orbs that those federal agents saw in 2023? Well, defense analysts point out that China has actively developed high-altitude spy balloon programs and actual drone motherships that are fully capable of carrying and launching hundreds of smaller drones mid-air. While the U.S. government hasn't officially connected the dots in these raw files, this real-world military tech provides a highly probable, entirely earthly explanation for what those agents witnessed.
And you know, we can bring that exact same rationality to the terrifying space sightings. The astronauts themselves actually offered grounded explanations. Neil Armstrong suggested the flashes on the moon were probably just sunlight leaking through their window covers, or atomic particles hitting their retinas. Buzz Aldrin theorized his space laser was simply sunlight perfectly reflecting off a really smooth lake back down on Earth. The truth is, many airborne anomalies turn out to be completely natural phenomena, distant planets, or just odd atmospheric reflections. Which really brings us to the core theme of this entire explainer. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Look, we would all be absolutely thrilled to find definitive proof that we are not alone in the universe. It's a beautiful, exciting dream. But scientifically speaking,
Blurry, low-quality infrared videos of glowing orbs simply do not meet the incredibly high burden of proof required to declare that extraterrestrials are visiting Earth.
In fact, the U.S. Defense Department created a specific office to settle this once and for all, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or AARO. In February 2024, after reviewing claims dating all the way back to 1945, they delivered a pretty definitive verdict. There is zero evidence of extraterrestrial UFOs. There is zero evidence that the U.S. is hiding or reverse engineering alien technology. The vast majority of these sightings are confirmed to be ordinary earthly objects, drones, balloons, rockets, or satellites.
Now, you might be wondering, if there are no aliens, why dump all these mysterious, unresolved files on the public in 2026? The source material actually highlights a pretty provocative theory regarding the timing. It notes the theory that the Trump administration may have released these uncontextualized UFO files specifically to generate massive media buzz, essentially acting as a strategic distraction from political failures and high-profile scandals, like the Epstein files. Whether it's a tactical diversion or a genuine push for transparency, the timing is certainly raising eyebrows among analysts.
And this strategy of releasing raw data carries a massive risk. The former chief of the AARO explicitly warned against this kind of disclosure. Releasing raw files, blurry videos, and unresolved reports without any proper scientific analysis or context doesn't actually inform the public. It just fuels speculation, baseless conspiracies, and pseudoscience. Mystery thrives wherever true contextual transparency is absent.
Which leaves us with this final provocative thought. If the truth really is out there, does releasing a massive cache of unexplained, raw military files actually inform the public, or does it just weaponize our own natural curiosity, blurring the line between crucial military secrecy and a deliberate public distraction? It's a really delicate balance, and definitely one worth keeping in mind the next time you see a mysterious glowing orb pop up in the news. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep asking the big questions.